Howdy, 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 this is Ryan Acidheads Murphy, welcoming you back to Smarking Off, and we're going to be talking about the best pro wrestling finishers of all time in this video. Now, everybody has their own criteria for what is the best kind of a finisher in pro wrestling. It's kind of one of those interesting things. Personally, I kind of like it when they mix things up and don't always use a finisher. You know, I wish there was a bit more unpredictability in pro wrestling. I'm not talking about roll-up finishes all the time. I'm saying, you know, have an assortment of moves that are believable finishes to a match and use them randomly. You know, don't let it be an obvious thing when the finish is coming. Don't let it be so formulaic and predictable. But having said that, obviously, the finisher move is a staple of pro wrestling. Has been for ages. Has it made pro wrestling a bit formulaic? Yes. But everything is formulaic in entertainment. That's just the nature of the beastie. So, let's start off by asking what makes for a great pro wrestling finisher. Well, honestly, everything is situational. Any move could be a finish, really. It depends on how well it's set up, the presentation. You have to have the right person doing a move in the right way. You have to have the move protected. People have to sell it properly, because at the wrong time, having a person no-sell a move can kill the move. If you don't have the right person doing the move, it'll always look like shit. No matter how devastating it should look, the wrong person doing it kills it. So there's all these situational variables. So let's say, though, that if we're going to set down some criteria that to qualify as a truly great finisher, it has to be something that looks like it could end a match. And again, any move could fit that qualification if the situation's right. Even a roll-up, like Toru Yano in New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's what I watch these days, is New Japan in JPW. Toru Yano uses a roll-up. He has a lot of variations on, various roll-up pins and sneaky pins. And that's how he wins. You know, maybe a low blow first. But the way he tends to win matches is through sneaky roll-up pins and variations of that theme. And they make it believable. So any move could meet that criteria if you have the right person doing it in the right way. So what we're going to talk about is a move that needs moves that are a bit less situational, for the most part. Moves that will pretty much always look like they could finish a match. And moves that could be used by just about anyone on just about anyone. Now, there's going to be some other ones in here later on, like slams and stuff like that. Some of these are categories rather than individual moves that I'm going to be talking about. But for the most part, these are going to be moves. Some of these are individual, special, sort of situational moves, rather than overall categories or particular moves that lots of people have used. So there's a little bit of variety in this list. But for the most part, I'm looking for moves that for the most part, could be used by just about anybody on just about anybody. So let's just get into the list here and start with the Stunner. Originated, to the best of my knowledge, by Mikey Whipwreck as the Whippersnapper. But Stone Cold Steve Austin, as the Stone Cold Stunner, had a certain kind of snap to it. The kick to the gut, the Stunner, he would hit it out of nowhere. In fact, the more it looked like, when he was trying to set someone up for it, he almost never hit it. He would always hit it when you least expected it. You know, he was the Texas Rattlesnake, and that was his bite. You never saw it coming. So it checks off all the boxes. Guys still like to use the stunner. I just wish they would try to bring in more of that unpredictability, because they're kind of missing the point of the move, what really makes it work. And there are variations you can do on the stunner. Mikey Whipwreck would do a whippersnapper off the top, sometimes as a finisher. There's the Diamond Dust version, which is coming off the turnbuckle, flipping over your opponent, and then dropping down in the stunner. Some people use it as a counter move, all of which can be effective. And it's throwing in variations like that that actually help make a move work. Which brings us to the cutter. That's my next finisher, or category, basically, because that's actually, Diamond Dallas Page, to me, will always be the master of the diamond cutter, the cutter. I don't remember if he innovated the move, but it was just that he could hit it from so many different positions. If he went for the move, he never hit it, just like the stunner. It was the fact that he could hit it from so many different positions, out of so many angles, or and you would never know it was coming. And that's what made it work so well. Again, you see guys using it today in New Japan. Tama Tonga has started using it, but he doesn't have that unpredictability. That's what he needs to develop if he wants to really feel like a proper user of the move. Okay, so again, the cutter is one of those ones that, when it's executed properly, when they throw in all those variations, all those different positions and angles, the way Diamond Dallas Page would do the move, it was one of the greatest finishers of all time. Checks off all the boxes. Now I'm going to get into probably my only real standout individual here. I am going to bring up another one a bit later, but for a different reason. But Rob Van Dam. Probably the most unique pro wrestler of all time. In terms of moveset, certainly is. But I'm going to talk about the Van Daminator and the 5-star Frog Splash. Now, I'm not talking about the Van Daminator where Fozzy would hold the chair. I'm talking about when they would be coming at him with a chair and he would just pop up, do the spin kick in the air, and then smash it into their face. Again, very much like the stunner and cutter. You would see it coming because they would be coming at him with a chair, so it was it was more predictable than the other two. But still, the fact that he could hit it on anybody coming at him with a chair at any time from different angles and positions checks off most of those boxes, and it looks like it could finish a match. Now, pardon me. The 5-star Frog Splash introduces a concept to not just finishers, but to pro wrestling moves in general that I would like to see more of. Not all the time, not everybody doing it all the time. Kushida does this when he does his baseball punch. He shakes his hand. He hurt his own hand. And the 5-star Frog Splash, we can talk about the height that Van Dam would get on, or gets on it, the impact, which is considerable, the fact that he changes in midair. But what always makes the 5-star Frog Splash stand out from all other aerial moves is he sold the move himself. Nobody sells the 5-star Frog Splash more than Rob Van Dam. Okay, and it just creates that psychological thing of, well, shit, if it hurt him that much, it must have absolutely crushed his opponent that he hit. And the same thing, like I said, with Kushida hitting or shaking his hand after doing that punch. It's just that little psychological thing of, well, shit, if his hand hurts that bad, just think about how much it hurt the other guy that got hit with it. So I would like to see, again, not everybody doing it all the time, but just a little bit more often. Sell your own moves. You know, act like it hurt you. Somebody does a really hard clothesline. Shake your damn arm. Something. Little things like that. You do a splash on somebody. Hold your gut and, rub your gut and chest or whatever like you actually hurt yourself a little bit. The more high risk actually the move is, the more you should actually act like you hurt yourself. Depending on how you hit. I mean, if you do something and you just hit it so picture perfect clean, and you really shouldn't have hurt yourself, then don't do it, obviously. So like I said, not everybody doing it constantly, but a little bit more of selling your own moves, I think, would contribute a lot to pro wrestling in general. And I think that is one of probably the one thing that helped make the 5-star frog splash always feel so special as a finisher. That Van Dam sold the hell out of that move. Again, a lot of the time I think he sold it more than the person he hit. And that just made it feel like such an immense impact. Okay, so let's get into some strikes now. The category of basically knee, kicks, shin strikes, that sort of thing. So I've got like the Shining Wizard knee, Sweet Chin Music, Shibata's penalty kick, the Bomage, Nakamura's shin kick. It's more of a shin kick than a knee strike when he lays it in. And again, different kinds of moves, and they can be hit from lots of different angles. And the Sweet Chin Music, the thrust kick, or AKA the super kick, gets so overused these days. I know a lot of people feel that way. But when you have a properly executed super kick, Sweet Chin Music, it looks like it could take someone's head off. Like the Shining Wizard knee. Kijimuto, other people you've used it, but it was first, or at least it was popularized. I think it was first innovated by Kijimuto, Great Muta. But a properly executed Shining Wizard looks like it's going to finish the match. Same with Shibata's penalty kick. Just runs full tilt and kicks him right in the chest. Brutally simple, effective. So all of those kinds of knee, shin, kick types of moves that get used as finishers, or have been used as finishers. And again, it's more situational. It needs to be the right person doing the move. Not everybody can pull it off. But enough people can that you're still more or less checking off the boxes. And they can just, like I said, they can be so simple, but look brutal, and is everything you would want from a finisher. So as a category, knees, shin strikes, kicks, when done properly, very excellent wrestling finishers. Alright, my next category are choke holds. The sleeper and triangle choke are what I've got written down here, but any kind of a choke hold. Now, you might think, a sleeper hold is a finisher? Well, it was used all the time as a finisher in the past. And you have it locked in. You have somebody that really locks it in. Properly locks it in, hopefully you're not actually cutting off blood flow, which is what the sleeper hold does, is it cuts off blood flow to the brain when you actually tighten it up. But if it's locked in properly and sold properly, a sleeper hold still looks like it's going to put somebody out. Triangle choke, any kind of choke hold. It doesn't matter what the choke hold is. If they're locked in properly, they look like they're locked in, or actually locked in, and they're being sold, it looks like a finish. And anybody can do it to anybody, pretty much. They're not used very often as finishers these days, but they could be. So that's why I've got those on my list here. So now we're going to move into kind of tackling kind of moves. So I've got Rhino's Gore and the Lariat written down. I'll go ahead and give a nod to the Clothesline from Hell and Goldberg's Spear, but he didn't use that as a finisher. He used it as a setup. I think the only person I've seen use the Spear slash Gore, or AKA Gore, as a finisher and actually make it look like a finish was Rhino, or is Rhino. Huge amount of impact. Looked like he was gonna cave your damn chest in when he hit you, or abdomen. And had the mass and force behind the move to make it look like a finish. Now, again, we're getting more situational here, and into the territory where some of these moves don't look the greatest against really big guys, which is another reason why I'm not a big fan of huge guys in pro wrestling. Because, yeah, they may look impressive, but they can't win all the time, and they tend to make finishers look weak. I'll give you an example. Well, I'll wait for the next category, actually. I'm just about done here. So, Rhino's Gore was a really good one, and he could hit it on just about anybody and make it look effective. The same goes for a really properly executed, hard lariat, or clothesline. Stan Hansen is the all-time master. And again, we go back to the thing about hitting moves from different angles, different positions, not doing the same thing every single match. Hansen would hit it from different angles. He would hit it running, he would hit it from a standing position, he'd hit it to the back of the head, running to the back of the head, from the side. Now, yeah, it made him a little bit dangerous, because I guess he's very nearsighted, so that's one of the reasons why he looked so damn dangerous, because he actually kind of was. But just throwing in the variations, it really took Stan Hansen's lariat, running or standing, from being generic to in a category all its own. And you still see it used today in New Japan as a finisher, and it looks believable as a finisher. It can look believable as a finisher, but again, I think that if I want to talk about the one person who made it look like it could kill somebody and gave it that variation, that unpredictability, it was Stan Hansen. Other people imitate, he's the master. But in terms of all-time great finishing moves, a very high-impact, hard-hitting lariat is still a great finisher. It was in the past, it still can be today, and still is today. So now we're going to get into what I was going to talk about. Slam suplexes. And I've also got the Uranagi, which is most popularly known as the rock bottom, although a proper Uranagi is kind of lift up and then over to the side and drive in the slam. So the rock bottom was a safer but also lower impact version of the move. We're starting to get into the more situational moves. I'd say the first 6 all are completely they fit both of my criteria, basically. The kicks and strikes and stuff, maybe not so much, because you have to be only the right kind of people are going to be able to hit those kicks and the knee strikes and shin strikes and stuff and make it look like a finish. The same with like the Gore, Spear, Lariat. You have to have enough body mass and enough speed and impact to make those work. So maybe my criteria is a little bit too harsh, but the stunner, the cutter, and chokeholds, those I would say are evergreen. You can always get away with using those as finishers. It doesn't really matter how how big you are or how big they are. Anybody can do those, I think, with reasonable believability. But we get into suplexes, slams, and again, you have that problem of the bigger the guys are, it depends on the relation of the size. Somebody smaller cannot believably slam somebody that's bigger. As a finish, the smaller guy slamming the big huge wrestler is kind of a classic visual and moment in pro wrestling. What I'm talking about is doing it as a finish, though. And it's kind of those weird things. That's why I would never put the F5 as a great finisher, because it has such a narrow window of really looking like a proper finish. He hits it on somebody really big, like Big Show, which is at the extreme end of the spectrum, but somebody really big, because he doesn't drive it in. Lesnar. He just throws them off his shoulder, so it doesn't look like they are really getting hurt. They're not landing with any more impact than maybe falling forward. And the same issue with small guys. He throws them off his shoulder, and it's like they take more impact when they miss one of their high-flying moves. So there's kind of a narrow window of size that really works with that move. And that's kind of the problem with all suplexes and slams. Is that it needs to be the right size of a person doing the move onto the right size of person that's taking the move. Because you start moving, too far in certain directions, and it starts to become less believable. Now, usually a big guy doing a move on a smaller guy is going to look devastating, but again, it can be situational. So while there's plenty of slams and suplexes that have been used as finishers over the years, they can be very situational and really depends on who's doing the move and who they're doing it onto. So I will go ahead and put it as a category of great finisher moves, because there have been some real great ones over the years. British Bulldog's Power Slam, when he executed it to perfection, looked like a proper finish. Taz's Tazplex, the Perfect Plex, was a great finisher, because when he really had it cinched up, it looked like there was no way for him to get loose and kick out. So there have been some really great ones over the years, but there's also been a lot of really bad ones. And they're extremely situational, so great category, but very situational, kind of breaking some of my criteria there. We're starting to get into where I'm kind of filling in honorable mentions, almost. So let's get into the next category, which is spiking type moves, the head into the mat. DDT, pile driver, power bomb. That's head and shoulders and back, depends on the type of power bomb. A brain buster, like Naito's Destino, which is a variation on a tilt-a-whirl reverse DDT. That's a standing tilt-a-whirl reverse DDT, tornado reverse DDT, if you prefer. So again, it's the same sort of situation as the suplexes and slams. Now, a DDT is another one. I would consider the DDT as an evergreen, because with the right build-up, the right person doing it, just a straightforward DDT could still be a finisher. Again, like I said about right at the beginning, any move can be a finisher if you have the right setup, the right presentation, the right person doing it, the selling is there, and the build-up to build up that belief that people don't kick out of this. So if you have all those factors, pretty much any move can be a finisher. So a DDT is another one of those ones that I would consider an evergreen, because it can still look like it can finish a match, and pretty much anybody can do it to anybody else. So much like the stunner and the cutter, and unpredictability, because the DDT can come out of nowhere, you can hit it from a variety of angles, and it looks like it can finish a match. So the DDT kind of checks off all the boxes. But again, it has been so overused. That's why I've kind of lumped it in with the other spike on the head kind of moves, because it's been used to the point that its ability to be used as a finisher has been diminished simply by overuse. So it's kind of it could still be considered right up there with a stunner or a cutter, but it's been so used that it's a bit of an on the fence one. Now pile driver, again, pile driver has been so overused as a transition and setup move over the years that its potential as a finisher is seriously diminished, but it is still something that looks like a devastating move. So again, if you have the right person doing it, you protect the move, it's sold properly, you can still use a pile driver as a finisher. But then, like I said, suplexes, slams, it's situational. It has to be the right person doing it, and it depends on who they're doing it to. Same thing for a power bomb. Not anybody can do a power bomb and make it a believable finisher. Okay, and you can't do a power bomb on anybody and make it on everybody and make it a believable finisher. You know, power bomb, and again, pile driver, power bomb. Power bombs have also been kind of used as a transition move for so long that it takes a very special power bomb to feel like a finisher these days. But again, it can still work. Brainbuster, at least in New Japan, is a very protected move. You know, usually if somebody gets hit clean with a brainbuster, they're done. The Destino also brings up the fact that in New Japan in particular, people will say that they overuse finishers. Actually, if you pay attention, like the Destino, the Rainmaker, I could have brought up the Rainmaker about the Lariat, because that's another one of those things. I think the Rainmaker looks weak when he does it against Bad Luck Fale, or in some of the other larger guys. It looks like dynamite against the guys that are about Okada's size and smaller, but against some of the bigger, strong style guys like Makabe and especially Bad Luck Fale, it looks weak. So, again, there's situational variables. Which, like I said, is true of all finishers. There's probably not a single finisher that there's probably not a single move that honestly will always look like it's going to finish the match, no matter who does it and no matter who they do it to. So I set up my criteria knowing that it's not always going to be attainable, if ever attainable. But I wanted some criteria to work with. So, anyway, DDT, Piledriver, Powerbomb could still be used as finishers, but it would be tricky. So now we get into flying, striking types moves. Flying elbow, Randy Savage's flying elbow, the flying headbutt, the splash, all the various 450, shooting star press, all that sort of aerial attack moves. And again, the moonsault, a classic. It just depends on the wrestler doing it. Obviously, not everybody can do those moves. And it just depends. It depends on who's doing what to who. But again, if you build it up properly, it's like Randy Savage's flying elbow. There was just something about the way he would do the move that made it look like it would finish the match every time. He made it look like nobody would ever kick out of it. And you add to that they pretty much never did. People sold the move properly. It was protected. It was a great finisher. The flying headbutt. Or diving headbutt. Or like Honma's Kakeshi headbutt from the top. Looks like it would actually hurt like hell. And another one of those ones that usually, when the person doing the move connects, they sell it themselves too. Kind of dangerous though. Puts a lot of impact on the head and neck, which finally caught up to Hanma. If you're not familiar with New Japan, Hanma, he has the there are these little dolls in Japan called Kakeshis, that, as I understand, and they have a bad habit of falling over because they're top heavy. So he would have that. He did this headbutt where Hanma would do this headbutt where he would just kind of fall over and try to hit his opponent. He would miss more often than he hit, but the move is protected and set up to just be this devastating impact from headbutt. And he would use it as a top rope headbutt finisher, and oh god, times he hit it to the outside. You'd think he'd not only seriously hurt them, but broken his own damn neck. But eventually he did have some serious neck injury. So he's recovering, and I think he's going to be coming back in just a few months, if not sooner. I'm not sure when he's going to be coming back. I kind of hope that he doesn't keep doing the headbutts, though. So anyway, a properly executed flying elbow, headbutt, or splash, any of the aerial moves, if they're executed properly, the other person sells properly, great finishers. They can be really great looking finishers. But again, you're starting to get into that area where you're not really ticking off the boxes because it's very situational and dependent on who is doing the move and onto who. Because again, size-wise, after, you get guys that are a certain size, again, I'm going to go to Bad Luck Fale or any really bulky guys, a finisher like that, a small dude doing a splash doesn't look like it's going to finish the match. So, very situational. Then we're going to finish up with leg submission moves. And there's loads of submission moves. I'm kind of lumping all the submission moves other than chokeholds into this final category. So I'm talking sharpshooter, figure four, cloverleaf, crab, but also like the crossface. And, any submission hold. Now, not every submission hold, because there are loads and loads and loads of submission holds that have never been used as finishers or hardly ever used as finishers. I'm talking about the ones that are classics and have been used as finishers often by multiple people. So like the sharpshooter, been used by quite a few people as a finisher, and when it's locked in properly, it looks very nasty and effective. Unfortunately, that's true of most submission hold finishers. People tend to get sloppy with them. If you're going to do the move, lock it in properly, make it look like it's a fucking finisher. The figure four is a great one. The cloverleaf is a very good one when it's locked in properly. Tanahashi does a really good variation on the cloverleaf. The Boston Crab, and of course Chris Jericho's Lion Tamer variation. Very good submission hold finishers. The Crossface, very good submission hold finisher. Some of the variations on an STF, like the Regal Lock. Let's see. So yeah, any of those kinds of moves, any submission hold finishers, when they're locked in properly, are great finishers. And I would even put them into the evergreen category along with things like the stunner and the cutter and the DDT and some of the strikes and stuff that most people can do to just about anybody. Most people can do them to most people. Because, it's going to depend a lot on size. Because, again, you have somebody the size of like a Big Show, it would be very difficult to lock on a submission hold onto Big Show. Not impossible, but difficult. Believably, I should say. But at the same time, if you did get it locked in and really made it look good, it would be very believable because at his size, he does not have the maneuverability to escape. The ankle lock is another good one. You know, anybody who's ever twisted their ankle, and most people have at one time or another, knows how painful that is. So the idea of somebody grabbing your foot and just twisting the fucker like they want to take your foot off is a believable finish. An arm bar. You know, straight leg locks. Not used all that often as finishers, but have been and can still be. So, when it comes to evergreen finishers, submission holds, the classic submission holds, I will still say belong on that list of all-time great pro wrestling finishes because they tick off the boxes. Especially if you work in some variations and you work at being good at submission holds, and you work out on work so you can do stuff like Nakamura and his spinning armbar takedown that he can do from multiple positions. You know, you don't have to be flashy like that, but being able, I'll bring up Benoit doing the crossface. He could grab people with that move out of nowhere. It looked effective, painful when it was locked in properly, and could be hit from just about anywhere at any time. Lance Storm and his half crab. You know, the way that he would roll through, take them off their feet, trip them up, and then be on them with the half crab. Any of these moves can be very effective as a finisher, especially if you work at being able to hit them from get into the holds from different positions and do variations on them. And I'm not talking about doing like Zack Sabre Jr. and transitioning constantly to where it looks like he's not doing anything, he's just showing off how flexible he is. I'm talking about being able to do things, just variations on a theme. If you want to, if you're watching this and you want to be a pro wrestler, or you're a pro wrestler looking for your gimmick, and you just happen to watch this, you could use the Boston Crab as a finisher. Because you can work in the Boston Crab, and you can do the half crab on either leg. And you can do things like, the Lion Tamer variation with the knee in the back. And let's see. Like grabbing their leg with your hands and putting your knee into their leg and just torquing on it. And maybe working in the cloverleaf variation, which is very similar to the crab. You cross the legs. Well, you don't have to just do the crab. You could do the variations, the sharpshooter, the cloverleaf, and the Boston Crab as your finishers, and then just work out different variations on those holds. And then work out, you could do the knee breaker, and, all the classic stuff like Ric Flair would used to do, the knee breaker and the chop block. Kicking people in the shins, in the legs over and over again. Learn a little bit of martial arts and incorporate that into your style and just kick people in the legs over and over again. Like doing a jab in boxing. Just all kinds, the knee into the mat. Stomping on their legs when they're on the mat. There are tons and tons of things you can do and set up your finisher. It's like, the Boston Crab is my thing, that's what I like to finish a match on. or any of those moves. I love, and then you can use that to tell a story, because that's what pro wrestling is telling a story. It doesn't matter what it is. Learn to do variations. Learn to hit things from different angles, from as many different, and do your moves, whatever your specialty is, learn to do it from as many different positions as you can, from as many different angles as you can, with as many variations as you can. And you will become a dynamic, unpredictable performer in the ring over time. And to me, more than anything else, that is what makes a great finisher, is the wrestler. Because it doesn't matter what the move is, if the person doing it doesn't do it right and they don't have any panache, don't have any style behind it, then it's going to suck. The greatest finishers are that way because of the individuals who did them the way they did them, with the style that they had. So, again, if you want to be a pro wrestler, or you're looking for your thing as a pro wrestler, that's what you need to do. Figure out what your gimmick is going to be in the ring, what your thing is going to be. It's like you watch Naito in New Japan. He goes after the neck. He does neck breakers. He does a variety of different moves. He goes after the neck. But he also knows how to change things up. His match with Kenny Omega at the G1, for example. He targeted a different body part because Omega was going in selling an injury. So Naito changed up his offense to target the injury. He still won with Destino, which, honestly, again, going back to one of the things I said earlier, I would like to see more variety in pro wrestling. If somebody is suffering from a leg injury, target their damn leg. Don't try to win with Destino, if your move is like Destino or a slam or something like that. If somebody's coming in with a leg injury and you work your match going after their leg, then and you're gonna win. You've been booked to win. Then finish with a fucking leg. Throw some variety in there. So maybe I'm wrong. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. But personally, I feel that if you really want to be one of the greats, and you want that your finisher to be part of that, and honestly it is, learn variations. Figure out ways to do variations. Figure out ways to hit your move or to get your lock on or whatever from various angles and in different situations. Variety, unpredictability, style, and you have to have some style. But honestly, if you want to be a real great pro wrestler, also learn to be flexible and have some additional variety to what you can do in the ring and how you can finish a match. Because being predictable isn't as good as being explosive and unpredictable. Well, not necessarily explosive, but unpredictable. Maybe it's just me, but unpredictability is better than predictability. So if you're going to do the stunner, you're going to do the cutter, you're going to do a kick, you're going to do a knee strike, you're going to do a submission hold, a suplex, a slam, a powerbomb, a DDT, a flying move, it doesn't matter what it is. Learn some variations. Learn to hit it from different situations and different angles. And learn how to change things up when the story you're trying to tell would be best served by doing that. Okay? And I think that you'd make a great pro wrestler if you do those things in the ring, as well as working on your gimmick and your persona and everything else. But when it comes to finishers, that's what I'm talking about. If nothing else, go big. I kind of believe that that's a truism in some ways. Is better to fail big, or to go big and fail, than to play it safe and succeed, really. Well, succeeding is always better than failing, but you know what I mean. It's just one of those things, if you're gonna fail, it's better to fail big than fail small. Because then at least you're more memorable that way. That's the sentiment. So I'm going to stop rambling at you. I'm sorry. I am kind of a rambly, long-winded guy, but yeah, that's it. Best pro wrestling finishers of all time, and just some basic thoughts of what makes great finishers and what makes for a great pro wrestler doing a great finisher. So thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.